All right, everyone, welcome back. You know we love to go deep on specific tech topics, and today we're tackling a big one, the iPhone 16.
And I have a feeling this is going to be interesting.
Definitely interesting. For this deep dive, we're using the excellent review by Mark Brownlee, aka MKBHD, on his YouTube channel. That video is like 40 minutes long, though, so.
Yeah, way too much to cover.
Right. So we're doing what we do best, pulling out the key takeaways, the things you need to know to decide, is this the iPhone for me? And just a heads up, this is not the budget iPhone we're used to.
No, not at all.
All right, let's get into it.
So the price, it's $599 to start,
Yeah.
which is already more than past SEs. And the review unit Marquis actually used, that one was $900 because of Apple's storage pricing.
$900. I mean, that's getting close to the regular iPhone 16 territory, right?
Exactly. So already we have to rethink what this phone even is.
It's not a clear-cut budget option anymore. Okay, so what are you getting for that money besides the higher price tag?
Well, if you know the iPhone SE, you know Apple's parts bin strategy.
Right, using bits and pieces from older models to keep costs down.
Exactly. So the 16E is basically using the body of the iPhone 14.
Which is good, right, because that's a pretty recent design.
It is. It means you get those nice flat sides. USB-C finally.
Oh, yeah, the USB-C is huge for a lot of people.
And even IP68 water resistance, which the older Theses didn't have.
So it looks modern, feels modern.
Yeah.
But then what's the catch?
Well, this is where the nickel and diming starts
Yeah.
to hit that price point. The chip, for example, is the A18.
The newest one, so that's good.
Yes, BUT. It's what they call a binned chip, meaning basically some part of it isn't performing perfectly.
Oh, like it's a slightly defective chip they can still use?
Kinda, yeah. So compared to the A18 and the regular iPhone 16, this one has one less GPU core.
So for graphics-heavy stuff, maybe a difference.
Yeah, like if you're a big mobile gamer, you might notice it. But for most people, not really. There was that Oppo phone, the Find N5, that had a similar thing with a Snapdragon chip.
And it ran just fine, right?
Exactly. So not a deal breaker unless you're really pushing the phone hard.
Okay, that makes sense. So chip is a little bit of a compromise, but not terrible. What about colors? Any fun options?
Nope, just matte, black or white. The review even called the design super clean and super boring, like right next to each other.
Super clean, super boring. That's pretty funny. No text on the back either, apparently.
Nope, and the camera bump's pretty small.
So minimalist all around. Okay, here's something that really surprised me.
Yeah.
No MagSafe,
Right, it's gone. You get slow key charging instead.
which MKBHD was not happy about in the video.
No, he really wasn't,
Yeah.
especially because MagSafe is like the iPhone thing now.
So you can't just snap on a charger or accessories magnetically?
Nope. Dbrand, though, makes cases that add magnets to kind of bring back that functionality.
Oh, interesting. That's actually a good solution if you really want MagSafe. But okay, camera time. It's a single 48 MP lens. Sounds good.
But there's always a but, isn't there? The thing is, this camera has a smaller sensor than the iPhone 16 and 16 Pro, and the stabilization isn't as good.
So how does that affect, like, everyday photos?
Daylight, you'll be fine. It's low light where it struggles compared to those pricier models.
Ah,
The review said it's kind of like the Pixel A-series cameras, not necessarily BAD, just different strengths.
good enough for most situations, but not for, like, amazing night shots.
Yeah. And then, of course, no second lens means you miss out on some features.
No cinematic mode, no spatial video.
Right, and no macros either. Oh, and a few other things are missing too. Wi-Fi 6E7, which most people won't care about.
Unless they have a super new router.
Exactly. Also, no ultra-wideband, so no super accurate finding of your AirTags or whatever.
Yeah, starting to add up. All these little things missing.
Oh, and the action button. No camera controls on that either.
Okay, lots of compromises here. But, you know, the thing that I am curious about is that C1 modem.
Ah, yes. Apple's first in-house cellular modem.
Yeah, kind of like when they switched to their own chips and Macs, right?
Huge deal.
Mm.
But is it revolutionary?
Hmm.
Maybe not in a way you'd immediately notice.
What do you mean?
The focus seems to be on efficiency and size, rather than like blowing away the competition with speed. Performance is fine, but
But they're thinking long term.
right, and this leads to one of the 16's best features. The battery life is excellent.
Really?
Yeah, thanks partly to that C1 modem being so efficient. Plus, the battery is physically bigger than in the old SEs. It's actually on par with the 16 Pro, battery life-wise.
Okay, that's impressive. Coming from older SEs, that alone might be worth it for some people.
For sure. And it makes sense why they debut the C1 in a lower volume phone, right? It's like a test run before it goes into the main iPhones.
Totally. And this whole C1 thing has me thinking, could this be what finally makes the iPhone Air possible?
Oh, the mythical iPhone Air.
Right. Apple clearly loves thin and light designs, but battery has always been the limitation.
But what if the C1 solves that? Especially with rumors of new battery tech coming too.
Now that's getting me excited. Okay, so here's where things get tricky. The price. $599, even though it's a good phone.
It's a tough sell at that price because, like Marquise pointed out, a refurbished iPhone 15 Pro is about the same price.
And the 15 Pro is just a better phone overall, spec-wise.
It really makes you wonder, is the newest thing always the best thing?
That's the question this deep dive is making me ask. All right, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll tackle the big question. Who is this phone actually for? Stick around.
It really does make you think. A refurbished 15 Pro, that's a compelling alternative.
It is, especially if you're, value conscious.
Yeah.
But it does seem like the 16E raises some big questions about the SE line itself, like what's its purpose now?
Yeah, was it always meant to bridge the gap between those older iPhones and the flagships? Or has budget just become more expensive?
I think that's part of it, for sure. But I also wonder if Apple's playing the long game with that C1 modem. Maybe it's not about raw speed and no W, but about what it enables later.
Like the iPhone Air.
Exactly. If the C1 means even super thin iPhones can have amazing battery life, that's a huge E shift.
Totally. And it fits with Apple's design philosophy, right? They love pushing those boundaries.
They do. Okay, but let's be practical here. For people thinking about buying the 16E right now, who's it actually for?
Well, Marquis said it's a good upgrade if you're coming from, like, an iPhone 11 or older.
Yeah, those folks would see a big difference.
But if you're on a 12 or a 13,
Yeah.
it's tougher to justify.
Yeah, you're not getting that much more power, and those missing features really stand out at this price.
Exactly. Plus, that whole refurbished 15 Pro thing hanging over your head.
It's like Apple's giving you this choice, new but compromised, or older but potentially more powerful.
And I think that's the point of this deep dive, right? It's not about saying, buy this, don't buy that. It's about understanding the context.
Totally. We're trying to help people be smart about their tech choices, not just get caught up in the hype cycle.
Sometimes the smartest choice isn't the most obvious one.
This whole episode has been wild, though. We started with the new iPhone, and now we're talking about, the future of the entire smartphone market.
Well, that's the fun part. Tech is always changing, always giving us new things to think about.
All right, so big question. Are we in an era where even budget phones are expensive?
It's complicated. Part of it is just the world we're in, right? Inflation, component costs are up.
Everything's more expensive.
And then there's what people expect from their phones now. We want amazing cameras, super fast chips, batteries that last forever.
Even in cheaper phones.
Yeah, and all that costs money to make. But it's also about how we perceive budget. What's considered budget today might have been mid-range a few years ago.
True. Remember when the first iPhone came out, it was like, whoa, that's expensive. Now that's the price of, a basic Android?
Exactly. It's all relative. But I think the 16 shows how important it is to be aware of what's going on. We can't just assume the newest model is the best value.
We have to think critically. Maybe a refurbished phone is the way to go, or an older model that still does what you need.
It's about knowing your needs and making the choice that works for you, not just what the marketing tells you.
I love that, being an empowered consumer, and that's what we try to do here, right?
Yeah. We took one phone, the 16, and used it to look at the big picture of the smartphone world.
Challenge some assumptions along the way.
Hopefully gave people some food for thought.
Okay, as we wrap up this deep dive, what does all this tell us about smartphone trends in general? Are budget phones going to keep getting pricier?
Honestly, I don't have the answer to that.
But we've given people the tools to figure it out for themselves.
Exactly. Being informed is the first step.
Absolutely. Well, everyone, thank you for joining us on this 16 adventure. Make sure you check the show notes for the full MKBHD review and all the other stuff we talked about.
And if you enjoyed this episode, subscribe and leave a review. It really helps people find the show.
Until next time, happy tech exploring. It's kind of crazy, right? We started just talking about if this one phone is worth it, and now...
And now we're questioning the whole industry.
Yeah. Is this the new normal? Are budget phones just not budget anymore?
That's a good question. I mean, some of it's just the world right now, right?
Yeah, everything's more expensive.
Inflation. The parts that go into phones are costing more.
And then there's what we expect as users. We want good cameras, even on a cheaper phone.
Right. We want the fastest chips, batteries that last for days.
Which all adds up.
It does. But also, what we think of as budget has probably changed. Like, what's budget now, W, might have been a mid-range phone a few years ago?
That's true. I remember my first smartphone. I thought it was so fancy. Now that's like the price of a basic phone.
Exactly. The goalposts move, you know. But the 16, I think, it shows that we got to pay attention to all this.
Yeah,
Can't just assume the newest phone is the best deal.
right. Like maybe a refurbished phone is actually smarter, or even just a slightly older model that still does everything you need.
It's all about knowing what you need
Mhm.
and then making the choice that fits that, not just like the hype.
I love that. Being a smart consumer, not just getting sucked into the marketing. And that's what we're all about here, right?
Totally. Take one gadget like the 16 and use it to understand the bigger trends.
And maybe ask some uncomfortable questions along the way.
Exactly. Makes you think.
So, to wrap this all up, any final thoughts? What does all this mean for smartphones going forward? Are we just going to keep seeing prices go up?
That's the million-dollar question. And I don't know if anyone have the definitive answer.
But at least we've given people the info to like make their own informed decisions.
Exactly. That's what matters.
Couldn't have said it better myself. All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us on this 16E deep dive. Don't forget to check the show notes for that full MKBHD review and all the other links we mentioned.
And if you like the show, please subscribe and leave us a review. It really helps.
Until next time, happy tech exploring.